Economic opportunity and the lives of ordinary people is what guiding the rise and fall of world languages, the rise and fall of great empires. The new language, the language of the revolution is coming. It will come. It will surprise you. And you will have to study second languages as well. And possibly you will enjoy yourself in the process. Because it is such a pleasure to discover the values of your first language when you study your second and third. To understand how emotionally expressive, how rich, how beautiful the language is which you are born with. And how difficult it is, and yet how rewarding it is at the same time, was to understand with humility that the world does not have to comply with you, but you have to make an effort as well. I say, Mr. Speaker, my Lord Bishop, I say the revolution will come and all of us will have to speak several languages because an economic opportunity will so dictate. But until the revolution comes, comrades, let me also question the results of any vote held in a bourgeois parliament on a day which was not particularly sunny, in a windowless building, and with a poster in English only. I say, here is cultural imperialism at its worst. And here I said.
Glad that the honourable member did not get to the point of talking about who will be first against these poured concrete walls. And now we conclude with the final 2 minutes of speech and rebuttal to our Right Honourable Prime Minister, Dr. Fulton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our opponents, the opposition, have referred to the poster advertising this event. I would remind you that my alter ego in it, William Ewart Gladstone, never lost his Liverpool accent, although he studied at Eton at one of the universities and went to the height of the English top of the English political system. A great wave is coming. Well, if we know enough English, we can all be surfer dudes, and we can get stoked about it. The government is not saying that English should always be used. It should be used where it is useful. As other languages begin to spread beyond the places where they are spoken first, as they become supralocal languages, then English speakers should welcome them as other lingua franca. Many people today say that they want to speak truth to power. And I know that that expression wasn't formulated first in English. But if you are one of them, let me suggest that you will speak truth to power most effectively if you speak to the powerful in a language they understand. Often, and for regrettable reasons, that language is English. Speaking to them in English grants them no implied victory over your struggle. Speaking to them in English does not mean that everyone speaks English all of the time. Let me, in concluding, suggest that English as a lingua franca is a continuing and an unfinished project. Let me, in a spirit of modesty about my own use of English and a spirit of humility towards speakers of all languages, propose an ethics of international English for users of English in a global context, especially those who speak it as a first language. Those competent in English pay close attention. The key points of this ethics are as follows. Support the maintenance of other languages, especially endangered ones. Learn to appreciate and learn to teach the features of other languages. Study one language in the hope of becoming fluent in it. Don't assume that all uses of English revolve around native speakers like yourself. It's not all about us. Don't presume to regulate other people's uses of English with reference to your own. Keep your hands off their English. We don't know the future of English or any other widely spoken language. We can guess, but we cannot guarantee. Even as we decide it would be better if everyone spoke English, we need to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, fellow members, we turn now to opening the floor for statements. I would remind you that your statement should be a maximum of 1 minute. Make your point clearly and make it clear whether you're speaking in favor of the resolution, that it would be better that everyone spoke English, or opposed to the resolution, and I will time your speeches.
I'm going to act like Hans the mathematical horse, so I can keep an eye on you. I'd like to say 3 things. The first is, it's a matter either of power or efficiency which language is going to master. And I'm going to resurrect and modify my favorite question and answer from the Cold War. What's the difference between an optimist and a pessimist? An optimist learns English, a pessimist learns Chinese. Now what about efficiency? Bertrand Russell said that the ideal language, I'll do a little bit of linguistic here, every morpheme has a separate meaning, and we express ourselves by combining morphemes mathematically correctly. We have a language like that, and it's an ineptitude. For example, take this 2 little sentences. In English, I'm going to say, he's kissing his wife. How many of you think domestic felicity? Oh, so the rest of you think adultery.
Your statement, for or against the resolution?
Oh, of course, against it, absolutely. It's an ineptitude.
Like to make a statement on the floor.
You have to ask the questions in English.
No, it's up to you. This minute is yours. You'll wait. Okay. You can do it from wherever you are.
Okay. So I am against having English as a universal language. I feel that in a lot of poor countries, that people who don't speak English, if it was a universal language, there's a really big there's a gap between the rich and the poor. And I think that this gap would get a lot worse, and it would get a lot harder for people who are poor to kind of come up in society and get an education if the universal language was English. I think that people would look to have jobs, to have, if people could speak English. And I'm turning into the beauty queen from California. But anyway, I'm getting nervous. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I think that, you know, it's better that we keep it the way it is, so that because we should be trying to fix the gap. We should be trying to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, and I think that having English as a universal language would exacerbate it. Thank you.
Any other raised hands? Okay, there's one in the middle back here.
I'll use my mother's voice.
Okay.
One of your speakers referred to the economics of English, and with that I will point out that all traffic controllers, pilots, have to communicate in English all over the world. Otherwise they would be in a lot of trouble, and we all know that a lot of the economy of this world is done through airports and airlines and those kind of modes of transportation. So I'm just wanting anybody to debate what we do with the language of English in the tower.
Thank you very much.
So I am against this proposal, and I come from a part of the country where English is not the first language. I come from Quebec. And I have to query the member from the County of Greek and Roman Studies. Now, the Greek and Roman area, the Greek and Roman Studies, used to be, a long time ago, le berceau de la civilisation occidentale, which, for your information, means the cradle of Western civilization. In Quebec, we do not look at language as an efficient thing to sell stuff to. I would like to remind the member from the County of Greek and Roman Studies that in Quebec, language is for making love. It is also Berkeley saying beautiful clothes, which that women, by the way, wear elegantly. And finally, it is for beauty and enjoyment and pleasure. English is a poor language and a very poor substitute. In Eastern Canada, we love our French.
I'll just shout. I just got down to class, I can shout. I'm in favor of this resolution, Mr. Speaker, for the very simple reason that humanities would save a fortune by getting rid of those pesky French Germanic Studies and the Asian Studies departments, all these departments that waste their time teaching other languages. What an appalling waste of very limited humanities resources.
Point out that Dr. Isles is from one of those departments. Real altruism.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to speak against the motion for English as a universal language, lingua franca, which we had to borrow. What does this do to the role of the translator? Is the translator alone? If everyone wants to sell their books, they can write it in English. Everyone will understand it. They have the world as their oyster. But if we have the translator restricted to history, what does that do? How can we read about the past if only those who have taken the time to go beyond the lingua franca have access to that? Surely it is better to broaden our scope than to narrow it. Thank you.
Hi there. So I speak not in the sense of debate. If I needed to choose, I think I'd be against it. But I speak rather in a sense of curiosity. I think that we're debating something that's already naturally happening throughout the world. And that if we're having problems with culture or with different expressions that one person might understand in English or French or any other language, that another person might not, you have to start by educating the young people in a different value. With the environmental situation we have right now, there has to be conscious changes. There has to be something switched within our young that teaches values, morals, which we can bond the lingua franca identity to.
Pass this microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to address the entire panel and ask how it is that they carry this level of pride that they think they have any influence over the outcome of this in any way, that a policy set by people in government could affect the choices of those people around the world, the choices that they make every single day, whether to use the language or not. Simply by imposing a policy does not mean that the people of that country will come behind it and support it. And I address that to both sides of the party. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. More comments about trying to enforce policies in the Faculty of Humanities. Any other hands?
I like to speak against the motion. English is a very poor language because it has to scavenge all other languages in the world to make oneself understood. But also the grammar now is so incomplete and incorrect that it is very difficult to communicate to each other and get across what you mean. We only have to look at the USA. The amount of lawsuits they have is because the language is very imprecise. So I would prefer German, actually.